She arrived at the airport before sunrise and left long after midnight, when the civilian terminals were quiet and the hangars echoed only with the soft hum of power tools and the distant cry of jet engines. She wore the same grease-stained coveralls every night, her dark hair pulled tight beneath a cap, her eyes always lowered. To her co-workers, Ava was simply the night mechanic, efficient, silent, and impossibly calm under pressure. No one asked questions about her past, and Ava never offered answers. The airport itself was small, tucked between a desert plain and a stretch of restricted airspace most pilots avoided. Occasionally, military aircraft passed overhead, black silhouettes slicing the sky so fast they vanished before anyone could identify them. Each time Ava paused, her hands would still, her breath would catch just for a fraction of a second. Then she would return to work. 7 years earlier, she had been someone else. Back then, Ava Cole flew missions that never appeared on maps. Her name was spoken only in secure rooms, her call sign whispered with a mix of respect and fear: Night Fury. She was the youngest F-22 Raptor pilot ever cleared for deep black operations, chosen not for politics or connections, but because she could do what others couldn't, push the aircraft beyond limits and still bring it home. She had saved entire formations in hostile skies. She had turned near certain death into classified success. And then, on one mission, everything went wrong. The details were still locked away, buried under layers of secrecy, but the result was simple. The mission succeeded, the pilots lived, and Ava disappeared. Officially, she was deemed unfit for continued operations. Unofficially, she knew the truth. She knew too much. She had made decisions no one wanted to publicly defend, even though they worked. So her record vanished. Her medals were never awarded. Her name was erased. Ava didn't fight it. She turned in her flight suit, packed a single bag, and walked away from the sky she loved more than anything. Silence became her shield. If she stayed quiet long enough, the world would forget she ever existed. And for 7 years it did, until the night the storm came. The wind picked up just after midnight, sweeping across the runway in sharp, angry gusts. Dark clouds rolled in fast, blotting out the stars. Ava was inside Hangar 3, inspecting a regional jet's landing gear, when the emergency siren cut through the air. 3 sharp blasts, unscheduled inbound. Ava straightened instantly. Her heart began to race, not with fear, but with something she hadn't felt in years. The radio crackled. Tower to ground crew. We have 2 fast movers requesting immediate clearance. Fuel critical. Fast movers. Ava's fingers tightened around her flashlight. Civilian airports didn't get fast movers by accident. She stepped outside just as the sound reached her, deep, predatory, unmistakable. Twin engines screamed through the clouds, their roar vibrating through her bones. F-22 Raptors. For a moment, the world tilted. The air smelled different. The noise wasn't just sound, it was memory. Afterburners, night operations, heart-pounding silence between commands. The jets broke through the cloud cover, black shapes against flashing lightning. One wobbled slightly on approach. The other flew tight, too tight, as if guarding its wounded partner. Ava was already running before anyone gave orders. "Runway lights now!" she shouted, her voice sharp, authoritative. Heads turned. The younger mechanics obeyed without thinking, scrambling to activate emergency markers. She didn't notice their stares. Instinct had taken over. The lead Raptor touched down hard, tires screeching. The second followed seconds later, drifting slightly before correcting at the last possible moment. Ava exhaled only when both jets rolled to a stop. She approached the first aircraft cautiously, rain soaking her coveralls. Steam hissed from overheated panels. This bird had been pushed far beyond safe limits. She could see it instantly. The canopy rose. The pilot inside froze. For a long second, neither of them spoke. Lightning flashed, illuminating Ava's face. The pilot's eyes widened. His hands trembled as he reached for the radio switch, though Ava was standing right in front of him. "Ma'am," he said, his voice barely steady. He swallowed. "Is that you?" Ava felt her chest tighten. She knew that look. She had seen it in mirrors long ago, recognition mixed with disbelief. The pilot leaned forward, staring as if afraid she might vanish. Night Fury? The name echoed across the wet runway. Ava said nothing. Around them, the ground crew slowed, confusion spreading across their faces. That call sign wasn't public. It wasn't supposed to exist. The pilot climbed down from the cockpit, never taking his eyes off her. Rain streamed down his helmet. "They told us you were gone," he said quietly. "Erased." Ava finally met his gaze. "So was this mission," she replied. Thunder rolled overhead as the past she had buried for 7 long years began to rise. Right there on the runway, beneath the shadow of an F-22 Raptor. And the night was far from over. The pilot stood frozen in front of Ava, his helmet tucked under his arm, water streaming off the edges. His eyes never left her face, as if he feared blinking would make her disappear again. Around them, the ground crew whispered among themselves, confusion spreading like static. Ava finally broke the silence. "You shouldn't have said that name," she said calmly. The pilot let out a breathless laugh. "I didn't think it was real until I saw you." His voice dropped. "They told us Night Fury was a myth, a ghost story to scare rookies into flying clean." Ava turned away, walking toward the damaged Raptor. Old habits resurfaced without permission. She ran her hand along the scorched paneling near the intake, eyes narrowing. "Your left engine surged on descent," she said. "You compensated too late." The pilot stiffened. "How do you—" "You were protecting his jet," she added, nodding toward the second F-22. "You tightened formation to mask his instability. That's why you almost lost both of them." The runway went silent. The pilot stared at her, shock giving way to something deeper, respect. "No one taught us that maneuver," he said, "except one instructor, 7 years ago." Ava closed her eyes briefly. The storm intensified, wind tugging at the edges of the hangars. Base security vehicles began to arrive, their lights flashing red and blue. Radios buzzed with overlapping voices as words spread up the chain of command. 2 Raptors, emergency landing, civilian airfield, and a name that wasn't supposed to exist. An officer approached cautiously. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step back." Ava didn't move. "She's the reason we're alive," the pilot said firmly. "Both of us." The officer hesitated. Ava finally turned. "Your aircraft never should have made final approach," she said. "The second jet's flight control software was desynced. You didn't feel it because the primary system masked it." The second pilot, who had been silent until now, removed his helmet. His face was pale. "That's exactly what maintenance told us couldn't happen." "It can," Ava replied, and it did. She walked past them toward a maintenance console, fingers flying over the interface as if she had never left the cockpit. The screen flickered, then filled with raw diagnostic data. "There," she said, "right there. You lost redundancy at 30,000 feet. Another 5 seconds and you would have flat spun." The pilots exchanged a look. No civilian mechanic should know this. Minutes later, command arrived. A senior colonel stepped out of an armored vehicle, rain soaking his uniform. He studied Ava carefully before speaking. "I know you," he said. Ava met his eyes. "You erased me." The colonel's jaw tightened. "I followed orders." "You always do," she replied evenly. He turned to the pilots. "Is what she's saying accurate?" "Yes, sir," both answered immediately. The colonel looked back at Ava. For the first time, the authority in his posture wavered. "You shouldn't be here." "I never left," Ava said. "I just stopped flying." Silence fell again, heavier this time. "Command wants to talk," the colonel finally said. "Right now." They moved into the hangar as rain hammered the roof. Inside, Ava stood beneath harsh lights, surrounded by uniforms, rank, and questions that had waited 7 years to be asked. "Why didn't you come back?" one officer demanded. Ava answered without hesitation, because the truth was inconvenient. She told them everything, every decision made during the mission that erased her, every life saved that no report mentioned. She spoke calmly, without anger, as if reciting weather data. When she finished, no one interrupted. At last, the colonel spoke again. "The board was wrong," he said quietly. "We were wrong." A folder was placed on the table. Inside were documents Ava never thought she would see again: her restored flight record, cleared missions, her call sign printed in clean, official ink. "Reinstatement," the colonel said. "Effective immediately, rank restored, full honors." Ava stared at the folder. 7 years ago, she would have taken it without a second thought. She closed it gently and pushed it back. "I don't need my past returned," she said. "I need it acknowledged." The colonel nodded slowly. "Then what do you want?" Ava glanced toward the open hangar door, where the 2 F-22s stood silent under the stormlights. "Train them," she said. "Teach them what the manuals won't, so no pilot gets erased just for doing the right thing." The answer came quickly. "Approved." By dawn, the storm had passed. The Raptors were cleared to depart. Ground crew lined the runway, watching in silence as the pilots prepared for takeoff. Before climbing into his cockpit, the first pilot turned to Ava and saluted. Over the open frequency, his voice carried across the airfield. "All units, this is Falcon Lead. Special acknowledgement before departure." A pause. "Night Fury is real." One by one, other pilots on the channel responded. "Copy that." "Understood." "Welcome back, Night Fury." The engines roared to life. As the F-22s lifted into the brightening sky, Ava watched them go, not with regret, but with peace. The past no longer hunted her. It finally knew her name.